There's a major shift happening in Europe, and in just 5 days, the EU AI Act moves from political theory to legal reality. And whether you're building AI inside the EU or selling into the EU, the enforcement begins on 2nd of August. Now, with fines of up to 35 million euros or 7% of global revenue, it's critical we get this right. Hey friends, I'm Ahmed. I help professionals deliver AI in complex non-AI native organizations. And in this week's AI news for delivery professionals, we're going to focus on 3 things. 1, what's happening on the 2nd of August. 2, why it matters even if you're not in the EU. 3, what are the top 3 areas that AI delivery professionals and leaders must prioritize right now? So the EU AI Act becomes partially enforceable on the 2nd of August 2025. Now, this isn't the full rollout, but it's the first critical chapter in the EU AI Act regulation. And here's what that includes. First of all, the unacceptable risk, which is the prohibited items, things like real-time biometric identification, predictive policing, and social scoring, all of these things have been banned since the 2nd of February 2025, and now the penalties kick in from the 2nd of August 2025, what I've just outlined of up to 35 million euros. Now, high-risk applications where I suspect the bulk of applications will fall, things like standalone HR tools and CV filtering and credit scoring and medical solutions and education training, all of these things are what's called high-risk applications. Now, they've got an extra year, which I know sounds a lot, but actually probably best to get started very quickly. 2nd of August 2026 when enforcement begins for the software solutions and process types of applications. And then for physical products like robotics arms or medical devices, they have an extra year for the manufacturers to actually embed, make sure that the AI that's embedded within the products is compliant. So that has an extra year, the 2nd of August 2027. Now, for more limited applications, things like chatbots and deepfakes and virtual assistants, they have 1 year from roughly a bit over 1 year till the 2nd of August 2026. So we want to make sure that we've got all of our applications starting to think about how we can make sure that we comply. And we're going to be talking about that in the second half of the video. Now, interestingly, part of Chapter 5 of the EU AI Act is about general purpose AI models. So this is all foundation model providers like OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google, etc. They need to start publishing detailed summary of their training data and demonstrate systemic risk controls. So if you're building with these models, you're in line for scrutiny next. So under Article 53, the GPA transparency obligations begin from the 2nd of August 2025. If you've got GPAs already on the market under Article 111, you have an extra time to comply with the full obligations, and that is the 2nd of August 2027. But for new GPIs that come into the market after the 2nd of August 2025, that 2-year grace period doesn't apply. Now, the code of practice deadline is a voluntary code of practice, and according to IT Pro, Meta have declined to sign that, citing legal ambiguity. But you've got OpenAI, Mistral, Microsoft, and Anthropic either decided to sign it, or they are looking likely that they're going to sign it. So on the screen you can see a list of that. There are a number of other model providers that we have to wait and see what their stance is on that. Again, this is the voluntary part of the act, and let's have a look and see what happens as we move forward. Now, why might this matter to you? You may be thinking, if you're outside of the EU, why do I care about this? But here's what you need to know. The Act has extraterritorial reach. What do I mean by that? Well, if your AI system touches any EU user, customer, or employee, even indirectly, then you're kind of caught in scope, right? And so the enterprise supply chains are already responding. So large EU-based buyers and partners, they're beginning to demand proof of compliance. So if you're a vendor data processor or platform provider, you're going to need to start thinking about documentation, model transparency, and governance evidence pretty soon. So this kind of sets the tone, right? Because effectively the EU AI Act is the forerunner of AI regulation. So Japan and Brazil are apparently aligning. The UK has got a bit of a soft approach, so that's kind of a wait and see kind of attitude. In the US, well, the FTC and the White House are watching what happens in the EU quite closely. We're hearing some grumblings from the US already. But if you want to future-proof your AI practice, this is your wake-up call. Best to get started now. We've got just a year, as I said, and that's not a very long time. So here's a quick question for you. If someone from your legal or compliance team asked you today whether your AI systems were EU AI ready, what would you be able to say? What would you be able to answer? And would you have confidence? If not, I have a very simple solution for you. And it is called the EU AI Act scorecard. Now, this is something I've specially put together for you. And in just 5 minutes, you'll get a bespoke report identifying both of your strengths and your weaknesses, so you can focus all of your efforts on your areas of weaknesses and not waste any time where you are already strong. So visit the EU AI checker.intelligentdelivery.ai so you can apply the targeted guidance in this series to your specific situation. Okay, anyway, so that's the context. Now let's bring it back to delivery. What does it mean for you? What does all of this mean for you as a delivery professional? Well, to answer that, let's run through the problem through the lens of the 8 intelligent delivery areas, and let's focus on the top 3. So on the screen, you'll see the top areas. What do you think the announcement or the enactment, rather, I should say, of the EU AI Act has impacted? What are the top 3 areas of your AI delivery are most impacted? I'll give you a moment to have a think about that. Well, I think architecture, models and tooling, governance, risk and compliance, and delivery are the 3 areas that are most impacted. Well, as I said, let's start off with the architecture, model and tooling area. We need to start to make sure that we choose and integrate only compliant GPAIs. As I said, they've got a 2-year grace period, but just keep that in mind when you are selecting your model as the time progresses. And if you've got a high-risk application, you've got just 1 year to make sure that your architecture is compliant, supporting traceability, logging, and usage control. So if you've got the wrong architecture, you could embed risk in every release. Now, for governance, risk, and compliance area number 2, we need to be able to prove that we meet the obligations for transparency, risk management, and human oversight. And the reality is, if your governance is weak, your delivery is vulnerable. These are the kind of things we need to be thinking about now. And moving on to the delivery approach, your standard Agile or DevOps delivery may not be enough anymore. You now need to be more risk aware. And from my experience of spending many years with these teams, this is an area which they are particularly weak in. So we need to make sure our delivery method evolves to combine not just delivery speed, but also compliance and safety as well. Right, so now let's have a look at specifically what are the 3 top things we want to do in each of these 3 areas. So let's have a look at that. So number 1, we want to understand what the risk and compliance status is of our models and of our overall architecture. And we want to be designing for, logging and traceability and all of the things that are required within the EU AI Act. So that's definitely worth a read, or looking at my series where I cover this in a lot more detail. Next, we want to make sure that we have as many automated toolings as we can, so we can whiz through our compliance requirements in an automated way, and it doesn't slow down our delivery. That's going to be really important. And then moving on to governance, risk and compliance, we want to make sure that we've defined and documented our AI system inventories, so we know what it does, who owns it, which team maintains it, what data does it use, what's the EU AI Act risk category. And so we are 100% clear on what that's all about. And then we want to make sure that we've got clear compliance roles. we are ready for any assessment readiness as well, and we've got the reviews and audit trails in place as well. Delivery approach, as I said, it's about embedding responsible delivery into our overall delivery approach. So this has to become a lot more of the focus and emphasis, and we need to have transparency and risk training. On top of that, we want to include pre-deployment compliance and making sure that we've got built-in reviews into the process. Okay, so here's a question for you. Are your governance and delivery teams aware of the EU AI Act and the deadlines that I've just talked about? And can your tooling and architecture support audit-ready AI delivery? So to wrap up, the EU AI Act is no longer something for later. It's here. And if you're in AI delivery, it's your job to make sure your systems are both effective and compliant. And in this episode, we outlined the key enforcement dates, the penalties, and what it means for you. We saw how this would impact your architecture, your governance, and your delivery areas. And I provided you with a link to the EU AI Act scorecard so you can check your own strengths and weaknesses and focus on the areas that need the most help. So you can do that by going to euaichecker.intelligentdelivery.ai. But if your system is classified as high risk, you've got 1 year until the 2nd of August 2026 to get your house in order. So start now, because if you don't build with compliance in mind from the start, you're setting yourself up to fail. So I look forward to seeing you next week. That's all. Please subscribe for more enterprise AI insights. Till next Monday, I'll see you then. Goodbye.